welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, no, it's an honor.
Appreciate it.
Great. No, it's great.
This is great. I always like to start at the beginning, you know, just kind of take people through where you came from. Where are you from originally?
From Hartford, Connecticut.
And you didn't grow up in an acting household. What kind of, you know?
No, I mean, it's really weird because the time that I grew up, I'm 40. So I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. So we didn't have a frame of reference. We had, Sidney Poitier, we had Bill Cosby.
Right.
Black actors at that time were far and few in between and very rare, and definitely nothing from Hartford, Connecticut.
Right.
And so, so it created a weird dynamic because, your parents, out of fear, try to push you into a certain direction. And the biggest thing in Hartford, Connecticut was Pratt & Whitney, which built airplanes.
Right.
And if you got a job at Pratt & Whitney, that
was,
you're serious. Yeah. That was a really good job.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, now with this, with the next generation, you have more people, so it's more realistic to, Asian, Latino, African American, whatever. It's much more realistic to pursue a career in acting because, if an idiot like me can do it, anybody can.
Now there's a big family, right? Didn't you come from a Five.
Yeah. But extended. Yeah.
And where'd you fall in that? Where you?
The baby.
You were the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all take care of you. They all look out for you, or do they all pick on you?
I was the baby.
Enough said. When did you first realize that you might be interested in acting? I mean, do you remember a time?
I don't know if there was like I don't know. I go back and forth because when I was really young, I recognized that I was sensitive. My brothers, wanted to, go play ball in the dead of winter, and I'm like, yo, it's cold. I'd rather stay in and read and write some poems,
Yeah.
So,
something was up already.
They thought, ooh, So, and of course, growing up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I remember being 15 years old, and my mentor told me that I should take ballet classes. Now, I'm very bow-legged, and I got skinny legs.
And ballet.
Ballet. It was. But I did it, and he wanted me to do it to expose myself to art, to all forms of art. He wasn't pushing me to become a dancer, but if there was one magical moment when I decided to be an actor, I would say maybe in like the 6th or 7th grade, my cousin, who was a dancer, came to our school and she was dancing. And I grew up in a rowdy neighborhood. And it was like, amateur night at, Showtime at the Apollo, And if you got on stage, forget it. We would heckle. And it was this amazing thing happened. She was in a modern dance troupe. And when she came out on stage, all my rowdy friends they were quiet and they were mesmerized. And I was the one trying, hey, and and they're looking at her, and she was the star dancer.
Right.
And if she could shut us up, I wanted that kind of power. I wanted that kind of, and I'm not talking about an egotistical power. I'm talking about a magical power. I wanted that. I don't know what it was. And so even though I was the last one to settle down, I was the most affected, and not because she was my cousin, but because it was just I appreciated the beauty. I appreciated it, and I was moved, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to do something up there on stage, and it was just larger than life.
Now, did you actually dance before you had that moment, or did your mentor talk you into it after?
No. This was after. This was my and there were lapses. There were years where okay, you have that magical, that epiphany, and then you go off and you try to do something else, and then you come back, and then at 14, I had this brilliant plan that I would write a play. I wanted to be a writer.
At 14?
At 14. So I decided I wanted to be a writer. I had this plan. I would write a play for the drama club. They would perform it. It would be brilliant, and I would be a writer. That would be it.
Works for me.
Well, we didn't have a drama club. So I ended up joining as an actor, and we formed a drama club. And again, the type of neighborhood that I grew up in, athletic, the emphasis was always on athletics.
Right.
So you were considered less than whatever. And so it was this interesting phenomenon happened where, you know how you have the jocks, you have the smart people, you have and those were the cliques. And we formed this drama club, and we did Raisin in the Sun, and it was a huge hit. It was a huge hit. And from that point, being an actor became cool. And it was great because I felt like I was one of the architects of that, because we didn't have a drama club. So we created it, we executed it, and then literally within a year, if you were an actor, you were as cool as
the football player.
Which was really weird. So by the time I became a senior, when I was a junior, I joined a improvisational company, and we were paid. We were paid to travel around the state of Connecticut, and it was funded by Planned Parenthood, and we did little skits on teen pregnancy, VD, all these little, crazy little skits, but we were professional actors.
Right.
And so again, we would be on public access television. Sometimes we would make it on like channel NBC.
Yeah.
And so again, it just added to this thing. And so by the time I was 16, I knew this is definitely what I'm going to do. And then my mentor just started preparing me and saying, I think you should audition for the Juilliard school. I was like, the what? And then it became very clear that this was all I wanted to do. So at 16, which obviously was a huge advantage, because at that point, you start gearing everything towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To have that focus that early on, for me at 16, I was lost. I had no clue, and it must have been rewarding to know what you wanted and to be able to go after it.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I was lucky because I think I just transferred my mother's work ethic. So no matter what it is you're pursuing, my mother's like old Southern Black mama, It's like,
principles.
Get your ass up, get out and do something, But you transfer that to acting or to whatever, and it worked. Yeah.
Who is your mentor?
He actually passed away several years ago. His name was Clay Stevenson, and he is without a doubt, without a question, the most influential person. He was an artist in a true sense. So I think that anything that I aspire to is somehow influenced, because this was a man who, I don't know for those of you that have seen Cinema Paradiso. It's one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
He was that kind of guy. He wasn't as curmudgeonly as that guy, but like when he told that kid in the movie, don't come back to this town, Clay was always saying, go see the world, travel, taste wine, even if you don't like it, taste sushi, be able to be informed on things. He got me into foreign films. He just exposed me.
Yeah.
And coming from the type of neighborhood, and we grew up in the Reaganomics era, and we had a lot of programs when we were kids. We had a lot of inner city programs where they would come and take the inner city kids and put them out in the suburbs, and for whatever reason, but it was exposure. It was exposure.
Your world,
and quite honestly, it did. And it worked. Then Reaganomics came along and started cutting those things down. So I felt sorry for the generation behind me, because I was exposed, and it did help, because I didn't grow up wealthy. And there were just so many things that I would have never experienced had it not been for these programs. And so my mentor was just, he taught me, he was like, capitalize off of that. Meet people, go places, just do. He would take me to plays. He would, and I had a fourth grade teacher who was very similar. He would take us to, you remember the Wild Kingdom used to do those animal movies, and you just go out and see things. And but I would say Clay was definitely the biggest inspiration. As a matter of fact, when I had to incorporate myself, I named my company For Clay. Because it's in it, and I believe in always being aware of where you come from and how you've gotten there. Because a lot of us, we get to a certain place and forget about it. So I keep them alive that way. Yeah.
How did Clay come into your life? I mean, was he a part of one of these after-school programs?
He came into my life when I was 16, and I joined the improvisational company. They hired him as one of the directors, and he was living in New York at the time. He would commute back and forth. He had a place in Hartford, so he would commute back and forth. And he told me about Juilliard.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what Juilliard was. I'd never heard of it. He said, but you should. This is a school of classical training. You want to be classically trained. You want to have an advantage, particularly as an African American. Well, we were black back then, so being black.
Post Negro.
Post Negro black. He said, listen, being a black actor, he said you can have an advantage. A lot of black actors aren't trained. Right. They have a great emotional range, but they don't have the technical thing. So why not give yourself an advantage? Yeah. I said, fine. I just listened to him. I said, fine. Yeah. So he prepared me for Juilliard, and this man was so committed to the art. I remember being 17 and preparing for my audition, and I was at his house at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm falling asleep, and he's still doing my monologue, and he's still working on it. He literally transferred something to me because he was so passionate about the work. Yeah. That this audition was as important to him. In some ways, it was more important to him than it was to me. But once I saw that, it became that much more important to me because he just loved the work, and that's how I am now. I'm like, when it's about work, I'm tireless. I can just go. I'm crazy, and I drive everyone around me crazy, But it's just, and so we did. He chose the monologues for me. I did Edmund from King Lear, and I did Junie from Douglas Turner Ward play. 4 characters. Come on,
everybody.
Come on. Huh?
You stumped the audience.
Come on, Douglas Turner Ward play, 4 characters, young son. You guys don't know that? Huh? No. There's a reward. Hey, and see her.
She's jealous on her birthday.
Anyway, so contemporary and a classical piece.
Right.
And I went for my big audition to the Big Apple. You got on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was I was buzzing.
Psyched.
And I get down there, and there are 900 and something people auditioning for 30 spops. And when you're just too young and dumb to really know. You're like, hey, how you doing? Good luck. I hope you get in. Before you realize, hey, it's only going to be 30 of us. And it's weird because some of the kids knew that. Yeah. And they would treat you like, right. And I was just, look, I was from Hartford. I was just happy to be in the city and on my own. And so I go in, I do my monologue, and I'm acting. That's black acting.
I got it.
I'm acting my ass off.
Yeah,
I'm just going at it. And I'm just too dumb to know anything, right? So I'm just doing it. And they look at me and they kind of just dazed.
Yeah.
And they said, can you wait outside? And I'm like, okay, fine. And I go outside. Well, they told me to wait, so people are, This guy comes out who's a speech teacher, and he literally opens my mouth and he starts examining my mouth. I mean, this was like some Kunta Kinte shit.
What is this about?
So he asked me, he said, do you have, he opens up my mouth and he says, do you have anything, I can't remember what it was, but somehow I remember I had a little fro, so I had a pick, an afro pick. And I gave him my pick, and he literally took my pick and he moved my tongue down. And I'm about to get a little attitude now. So he does. So they call me back for a callback, and now they're eliminating people. So we're maybe down to 100.
Right.
Then we're down to 60. Then whatever. So I'm there literally until maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm the last one. What he was doing was they brought me back in, the last one, and they said, we think you have a lot of potential as an actor. We could not understand one word you said. Your speech is so horrible because my mother is Southern, and I grew up in an inner city.
Right.
So of course, we grew up saying, let me ask you, let me, whatever.
Sure.
And so I, not knowing, was offending the hell out of these people because I was doing Shakespeare. And I know they were like, so they wanted to see if I had a deviated septum. They wanted to know what
was responsible for this.
What the hell is making, they could not understand me. And so, I go home and I don't know, I think it was maybe out of ignorance. Juilliard was the only school I applied to. And I got accepted. And, Mom, I'm going to Juilliard. That's good, baby. What is Juilliard? So of course, and so I go there, and for 2 years, it is the rip apart mentality. Let's completely rip you apart.
Deconstruct it and put it back in.
Completely. And after 2 years, they make a decision if they believe you're good for the program and vice versa. And I was working really, really hard. I would show up before Juilliard. The training was so strict. You went to school from 9 in the morning till about 10 at night. And you weren't allowed to work. You weren't allowed to, because you would also have to rehearse on weekends if you were in productions, etc. So I would show up at 8 o'clock to take private speech lessons. I would do whatever I had to do. And I had my game plan. 4 years there. I'll join the acting company, and I'll do plays, and I'll be happy. And that was Keith David. Do you guys know Keith David? Keith David was on the cover of the brochure that they sent me when I was applying, and he was playing Othello. And there was something so inspirational about that program. I saved it for years. Just seeing, I don't know, whatever terms you want to put it, just seeing a black man, because again, I didn't have much to identify with, but seeing a black man on the cover of this brochure that the most prestigious school in the country is sent, I got chills. So I was like, wow. And so all I wanted to do, and I heard he had joined the acting company. So that was it. This movie shit was whatever. You know what I mean? I wanted to do that. And so I was working hard on my speech, and after the second year, you get critiqued, and I remember coming in there smiling, and they said, we've decided not to ask you back. And I was like, and it was June, so I couldn't apply to another school.
Right.
And I was devastated. I was devastated because you got to realize, from 16 to 20 to 19, 20, I had it all mapped out, and so I was absolutely devastated. Right. And I called Clay. I knew something in me told me, you are not ready to go out and start pursuing acting. You need more training. Right? And I was honest about that, but what was I going to do? And I was on scholarship. I was, even if I got accepted into a school, I couldn't afford to go.
Right.
And so I called up Clay, and I just told him what happened, and I was devastated. And he said, well, I think you should try NYU. And I said, I don't know anybody, blah, blah, blah. He said, let me make a phone call. He called and got me an audition with the president of the drama department, the graduate theater department. And the guy, he accepted me on the spot, and he said, I'll put you in an advanced program so that you will graduate. I was supposed to graduate in '84. So instead of doing 3 years at NYU, because Juilliard was a 4-year program, NYU was a 3-year program. He said, I'm going to put you in the 2nd year. So I would graduate at the same time. And I said, thank you, but I don't have any money. And he said, we'll work it out. And he took a chance on me. And I graduated with my Juilliard class. And it was, now let me get petty. Let me tell y'all the sweet.
I was just going to give us the dirt now. Give us the dirt. Here, no, we got to hear this. Yeah.
So, they used to have, I think they still have it, they have this thing called the League Auditions. And it's huge. The League Auditions is the top schools, Yale, Carnegie Mellon, Juilliard, NYU, there may be 11 of them. And this is why people go to they go to these schools specifically to graduate and be a part of the League Auditions, because at the graduating class gets to perform for an audience of agents, producers, casting director. The entire audience is filled with people, and they write down your name if they're interested in you. And they tell you, so now I'm coming, and it was held at Juilliard. So, little chip on the old shoulder.
Maybe a little one, yeah.
So I go back with my NYU class, and, I get up, and I actually open for my class. And you can either do a scene or a monologue. So I did a monologue called The River Niger. And so they write your name, and then the beauty of it is in the cafeteria, which is really big, that you'll see all these sheets of paper, and it's like you'll see ABC, NBC, CBS, Paramount, Warner Bros., every major studio. There's representation from. This is it. This is like, and so you'll see kids gathered around grabbing their names and looking for their names, because the more people that want to see you, the better your chances. So I remember going down there, and my class from Juilliard was just like up front, because they had gone before us. So they're up front. And by the time, and one person that was still a friend of mine said, Eriq, your name is on this list. And over here. And over here. And I started saying, excuse me. It was like, can you understand my speech now? So it was cool. And then the freaky thing is, so my philosophy is, if you kick someone out of your school, you kick them out of your school because they don't represent your ideals, your training, your philosophy, whatever.
Right.
Do you know I would get all of this. Mail from them, all this alumni stuff. I'm going, how the hell am I alumni? You kicked me out, And my first year on ER, the New York Times did this big article on me, and of course I just said the truth, And I got a letter from the president of Juilliard. And he was like, listen, we've changed. It was like, can you just please just take it down a little, you know? It's like, you know, so, but anyway, if I had to do it again, I'd do it because the combination, because the ironic thing was, the truth is my speech was very challenged. My diction was very hard. I had so much pressure on me because if you tell an artist, or if you tell anyone, relax, relax. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You know, and so it was turning me into this stiff, you know, I was doing Shakespeare like this, and I was being what I thought they wanted me to. And when I went to NYU, there wasn't that kind of, that type of pressure. So they thought, wow, he speaks very well, you know? And so it was just the opposite of it. And that's what worked for me. And if I had to do it again, I would do it that way.
What do you think they saw at Juilliard immediately that attracted them in the first place? I mean, we know what...
Raw talent, or more importantly, potential. I think that a lot of artists, you know, you have it, and I'm a huge advocate of training. I'm a huge advocate because I respect my craft. And I think that, you know, when people wake up one morning and go, oh, you know, I think I want to be an actor. You know, it's, you know, it's like, oh, I think I want to be a brain surgeon. You know, it's like
astronaut's fun.
Yeah, you know, what do I want to be today? So I think they saw potential, and I think they saw a rawness because I was too dumb and too young to know fear. So whatever I gave them was everything I had to give. I didn't edit. I didn't know how to edit. I was too dumb to be embarrassed. I was just too young. You know, you just get out there and you just do your thing. You fall on your face, but you don't know you're falling on your face. Right. And there is something so powerful and beautiful about that. In some ways, I believe I've become a much better actor, but in some ways, the opposite. Because now I edit. Now I know enough to say, is that choice? You know, back then I was just I was just raw. I was just going for it. And like I said, I understood me when I was saying Shakespeare. But
do you still find moments of that, you know, in your work even still? Where you tap back into that raw energy?
I'm working backwards. I think that there are moments in life that things will grab you, and it's so raw and it's so unpredictable. And you're like, wow, that was, you know, we're used to manufacturing moments. We're used to creating an interpretation, and life happens so fast, and moments in life happen so fast that whatever happens to you emotionally happens. And we start as an actor, okay, I need to, on this line, I need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because as a director, when I'm sitting on this side of it and people are auditioning for me, you know, people come in, and if they're doing the funeral scene, they've chosen the line that they're going to cry on. You know, but yet when I go to funerals, it's the weirdest. The moment chooses you. You don't choose the moment, and that's why, as morbid as it sounds, but you know, when you guys go to funerals, be aware, because that's as real as it gets. And when people get up and they say one word, sometimes they get up, they're composed, and they'll say one, or some of them, it's really dramatic when you see a person get through damn near an entire speech and they say one thing, they'll say the word camera. They'll say that one hat. She had a really interesting brown hat, and that brings back such emotion. But they're not chasing, this is what when I teach acting, I always say, don't chase the moment, let the moment chase you. You know, that way it's real and it's organic. So I feel as an actor, as a director, as a writer, I'm trying to get back to that because to me that's real.
Yeah.
You know.
So, when you finished at NYU, you had people that were interested in you, and what happened next? I mean, who was it that was interested?
I came out. I got an agency right. I got an agent right away, which was obviously the big thing.
Yeah.
You go. I got to go around and meet all the casting people in town. I met people from different studios, and of course, a lot of this was long-term relationship building.
Sure.
Some of it was very immediate. I had I think I had a dozen agents that wanted to sign, and you start narrowing. Some of them could be very small to very big. Back in the day, I was with an agency called DHKPR, which then became Triad, which then merged with William Morris. So I was with them right up through the merge to William Morris. You choose, you make those choices. And so I ended up, my first job was Joseph Papp's Shakespeare in the Park. And, I had, 11 lines, and was with Kevin Kline. I'm trying to think of the play. I can't remember the play right now. But anyway, for the most part, I was a spirit carrier. But that
but
job,
you were acting
I was acting in Shakespeare in the Park, and it was so beautiful because I remember having to leave my graduation early to go to rehearsal. And that feeling, man, of
that's sweet.
You're like, I'm going to go see my 11 lines. I gotta go. I can't stay here and flip a cap. I gotta go. I'm sorry. So that feeling. I was actually in my class. John C. McGinley, who's on Scrubs. John and I graduated together, and he was in the play at the same time. So he and I were and we were kind of the bad boys of our class. So the bad boys had jobs, and it was cool. So we went, and when we did our thing, and I managed to with 11 lines, I managed to get a review by David Simon in the New Yorker magazine.
Wow.
And is it David Simon? Was it John Simon? I'm sorry, John Simon. John Simon. And anyone who knows John Simon knows he is brutal.
Yeah.
And there was always this hush-hush that John Simon didn't really appreciate people of color doing Shakespeare. I don't know, but I ain't spread no rumors. But I came in one day after we opened, and all my friends were kind of, avoiding me. I was like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" And they were like, "Nothing." I was like, "What's wrong? Who died?" And they were like, "Did you read the New Yorker magazine?" I was like, "No." And they were like, "You got a review." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm an extra, right. What?" Yeah. So I get the review, and he says there were 5 shockingly bad performances. And he names all these leading actors. People with big roles. Yeah. And Eriq La Salle. And I was like, wow.
At least you're in
He
good company.
noticed me. Notice me. So now let me tell you guys. Okay, this stays in this room. Okay, because I know you're actors and I know you can keep a secret. What got me the bad review, the horrible review, the shockingly bad review, was we were doing the play, and Kevin Kline would come out each night and he would do this really long monologue, and I played one of the conspirators to kill him. And after a couple of nights, we were bored out of our minds. We're just like, come on, man. if he says this, thou, that, and one more time, so we're gonna say, so I'm dressed in this long green robe with fur around the sleeves and the collar, and so I decided that my character, we used to do, they used to tell us sometimes in acting class, choose an animal for your character. Choose an insect. So I decided, I'm like, he's a conspirator. I'm wearing green. I don't want to be a serpent. Nah, I want to be a spider. So he's just pontificating and acting his ass off, right? And so it started so simply. So my boy is on one side, and Kevin's here, and we're sitting there. And so he's just doing this speech, and he's getting ready to tell, I know that 3 people are trying to kill me. And he basically busts us. Right. So while he's going off before I just started, I don't know, weaving my web. I don't know. So I'm just, I'm just doing this thing, and it's really subtle. It's so subtle, right? Yeah. And because it's just for one person, it's like let's have some fun tonight. Right? So I'm, so he comes out, and I'm like, right? And so, we get a little laugh out of it. Yeah. The next night, he tells the person standing next to him, look at her. So I'm weaving, doing my thing. We have fun. We laugh about it. Yeah. He tells the next person. By the time the critics came, nobody on stage was looking at Kevin.
They're all looking at him.
They're looking at the spider. So when he finally says my name, I did this dying spider thing. I was like,
seemed like a good idea, though.
I mean, if people are on stage, I don't know, I'm talking to a professional actor. I'm telling you guys the most unprofessional thing, one of the most unprofessional, because there are many. This was one of the most unprofessional things I've ever done. Everybody is on stage laughing. Everyone is going, trying not to break. And Kevin is clueless, and he's right. And now I've got an audience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm doing. All of a sudden, my spider turns into Martha Graham. I'm doing finger ballet. I'm doing all of this, and people are, and they're like, and so Kevin would turn to someone dramatically, and the guy's like, and he would turn back at me, and I'm, my lord, and he would turn away, and I'd be like, so that's how I got my review.
But at least they noticed.
They noticed.
There you go. Do you remember what job earned you your Screen Actors Guild card? Do you remember your first gig in front of the camera?
Yes, I do.
Oh. Is this one of those questions I shouldn't ask?
Yeah. No, I'm not. The job, I believe, the job that got me my SAG card, I believe, was rapping. I did a film back in the 80s. There was a company called Canon. And they were doing all these exploitative films. It was Israelis owned the company, and they would do these urban films. And it was so funny. They did breaking, rapping, and and Mario Van Peebles. It was a modern day Robin Hood, and his nickname was Rappin' Hood. I really don't need to say any more than that.
Right there at the top of the resume for a long time.
I was his, Little John. I was his right-hand man in this, and I believe that because that was definitely one of my first films. But see, I had an interesting thing because after I did the play, I went and I did a movie, came back and did a soap opera.
Right, you did.
I did One Life to Live. I did As the World Turns and In Another World. But for me, I had a 3-month stint on One Life to Live.
Yeah.
The movie I did after that, I saw that I was becoming a better actor. That as much as I kind of turned my nose up to soap operas,
Right.
it actually helped me because I became aware of camera moves, of just adjusting my body and, just technical things. So it became really like an exercise in technique, in camera technique. And it was, it was interesting, but that was an interesting time.
That's a pretty brutal schedule, isn't it? Being on a soap opera. I mean, don't they hand you
No more brutal. The most brutal schedule in Hollywood is a 1 hour
1 hour drama.
Yeah,
Right.
that was nothing
Yeah.
compared to a one. I mean, no, that was nothing compared to no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you move out west? When did you?
I came out here. First time I came out here was in '86. I graduated college in '84. First time I came out was '86 to do some looping for rapping. Got buck wild, loved the weather and all of that, and went back to New York. In '90, I got an apartment out here and did the whole bi-coastal thing. '94 ER, and and that's when I definitely moved out here in '94.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about ER. I mean, how did you come to audition for the role, and what was that process like?
It was very unique, and I can tell the story now because I used to have to tell it so much when it first happened that I got tired of it. But I haven't told it in a while. So,
Our good fortune.
yes, I was in Portland and I was doing a show called Under Suspicion, and for whatever reason they decided that they only wanted to pay 2 people to be regulars. And I wasn't one of them. So they wanted us kind of around at their disposal. We were literally shooting up in Portland. So I wasn't contracted to these people, but it was work. So I was up there basically being a ensemble cop guy, with, maybe, 10 lines per episode if I was lucky. And my best friend is Michael Beach, and Mike Beach called me up and he said, "Yo, man, I just read this script called ER, and you need to tell your people about it. Do you guys do that with your friends?"
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Make sure you do. Don't let the business interrupt that. So we were always cool with that.
Yeah.
So he was like, he said, "Yo, man," he said, "this script, man." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I had my agent. I said, "Can you get me a copy of it?" And so my agent sent it up to Portland, and I read it, and I forgot to ask him which role. And of course, I assumed that it would say African American, Black, whatever we were back in '91. But I read it, and Michael Crichton did something so cool. He never said African American. He just wrote them all as doctors. And so I was confused because, all the good roles have always, whenever I read a script, the really good roles are always white males.
Right.
So I didn't know which role. I knew for me, the best character in the whole piece was this guy named Dr. Benton. I was like, that motherfucker is bad, So I was like, wow. So I called my agent and I'm like, which? And so they said, there's Dr. Benton. So, well, can you get me in? And so she was kind of, And so what had happened was she had been already trying to get me in for a couple of weeks.
Right.
They refused to see me. And I'm like, well, I mean, and I at this point in my career, I could get into auditions.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
good representation. I had a good reputation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have major trouble getting in, but for whatever reason, they refused to see me.
Who was they at that point? Was it just
They
casting
were the
directors
head
or
of casting, Barbara Miller, who was
Yeah.
the head of casting at Warner Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
About 5'5", 145 pounds, dirty blonde hair.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get back to her. Okay. So Barbara Miller was, cock blocking. She was just like, no, right?
Yeah.
So come to find out, the show that I was doing in Portland was Warner Brothers. ER was Warner Brothers.
Right.
They were trying to pull a fast one where basically, look, we don't want to pay you as a regular to tie you up,
Right.
but we don't want to encourage you to go get other work. So we basically want to be able to, right? So somehow,
Own you but not
now by this time, Mike Beach is the number one choice for this role. John Wells really liked Mike. He was like, he went to the network and said, this is the guy that we want. By the time I got back from Portland, they were like holding casting sessions at Burger King. They were like, excuse me, you flipping a burger, can you act?
Yeah.
And still, Eriq La Salle, no, he's too something, whatever, So so now it's pretty dead. Mike is going to network, and I'm like, go ahead, brother, break a leg.
Yeah.
He goes to network. The network says he's not a leading man.
Oh, ouch.
So they reject him, right? Now, John was so sure that Mike was going to do this,
Right.
they started shooting 2 days later after Mike. So they had to rearrange their schedule, push back Benton. They didn't have Benton. Now they're desperate.
Right.
So they get finished after they go through Burger King, the car wash, the supermarket. They're like, okay, fine, we'll see him. So I had done a series called The Human Factor with John Mahoney, ironically, a medical show on Thursday nights at 10 o'clock on CBS, right? And that character was also dynamic. So, I had a stethoscope, some scrubs, whatever. Right. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going for it. So I dressed up in my scrubs, stethoscope. I went in. And I was like, okay, this is it. I went in, I laid out everything I had. They whisked me to, then they wanted to bring me to network. And I was like, whew, wow.
Had you ever been? Well, yeah, you'd been.
Yeah, I'd been to network before. So they wanted to bring me to network. Yeah. They called with the deal, and I wasn't happy with the deal.
Ooh.
And I said, no, because the problem in this industry, women get it worse than any minority, but there's always, we've spent the money on so-and-so. Right. We really love you. We really love you, but can you? Yeah. And I'd had enough. Yeah. I just said, you know what? No, you're not going to screw me on this one. So, they were offering good money, especially if you ain't got no money. Right. They were offering good money, but it wasn't what I should have, what I felt, what my, So I said, no. So my agent is like, well, I said, no, if they don't come back at this price, I'm not interested.
Just to stop you there for a second. Was that a tough decision to make, or at the moment did it just feel so right you had to do it?
No. You know why it wasn't?
Yeah.
It wasn't tough because I had gone for an entire year without working. There one year I could not buy a job. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I was very happy. I was in acting class. That was a very important year for me because I empowered myself. And I realized whether you validate me as an actor or invalidate me as an actor, I know I'm committed to trying to be the best actor that I can be. So I wasn't working, but I was working my ass off in acting class. I was feeling good about myself. So 2 years later, when this thing came along, I was like, no, I feel good whether I do this job or not. And so I told my, at the time I used to shoot pool every week over at the Hollywood Athletic Club. So I told my agent, I said, no, it's 6 o'clock now. I'm not accepting that offer, and I'm gonna go shoot pool. And I left her the number. I said, if they decide to call back. So I called up Mike. I told him what I did. He was like, what? And he was like, right on. And he said something important to me. He said, if they call back, the job is yours. So I'm shooting pool. One of the waitresses comes over and says, you got a phone call. And my agent says, they came with your deal. They want you to be at network at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, Mike Beach, I'm like, okay. So I go in and I throw it. Everybody's in there. I leave and I'm in the parking lot. And I thought it went well, but I'm there with, I think, Morris Chestnut and somebody else. And I think it went well. The casting, John Levy comes down and I'm at my car, and he looks at me, and he nods his head, and he just does like that. And now you know how insecure we are as actors. I'm like,
What does that mean?
but the other actors are there, and we're talking, and so I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Now they've started shooting.
Yeah.
This is on a Monday, and I get home. By the time I get home, they call. They say they need you on set on Wednesday. They've pushed their schedule back, and they pushed their schedule back so much that the first day I was in every single scene.
Ooh, man.
And I was, and not only was I in every scene, but it was that's when they whipped out the oneers. That's when we were doing the oneers. And it was the one scene I had to do was with Noah Wiley. When I first meet Noah Wiley, I take him around the hospital and I'm telling him, this is this is that, this is that. I decided, I made a character choice that Benton is so arrogant and sharp, he spits things out, and if you don't catch it, it's on you.
Right.
And so, great choice. Hard to do. A lot of homework.
Yeah.
Because you gotta know these words. You gotta know all these medical things.
Right.
So
Different language to speak them.
So they nicknamed me, George and Noah nicknamed me, they created this sign when they would see me, which was this. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, right.
And they're like, 22. Because it took me 22 takes. And little did I know, they were running out of film, and the 22nd take was the last take that they could do. And they were smart enough not to tell me that because they were like, don't make them nervous.
Right.
I mean, and everyone was really, they knew where, I mean, it was a kind of speech that you needed a good week and a half to work on, to, medical jargon, speed, rapidity, just, efficiency, all of this. And literally, it was I think it was like a 3 or 4 page oneer. And it's me doing the talk, and Noah's going, and I'm like, and over here you have this department, and this is what they do, blah, 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 and come on, let's move, And so 22 takes later, I got it, and they looked at the, because at that point, you look at the cameraman and you're like, is everything cool? So I just saw the director after I got it. He wanted to congratulate me, but he was like, he just looked at the cameraman like, And so the cameraman was like, and they were like, woo.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about how brutal it is to work under that kind of schedule. Can you describe sort of what a typical, day or week or whatever, however best?
Well, I mean,
illustrates,
the irony of a show, most shows, the irony is, and I remember when Cheers was in its last year, the irony of shows is the longer you do it, the easier it is, the more money you make. It should be reversed.
Right.
You should make money the first few years because
You're working.
you are working.
Yeah.
And we were pulling, we were averaging 15-hour days. And it was so not rare. Not rare? I don't know. Okay. Forgive me. It's a word now. It was so typical to be there at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And because we were just finding what worked and what didn't work, not only would we be there at 1 o'clock in the morning, we would be doing trauma scenes at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God.
And trauma scenes were the hardest scenes
Sure.
to do. And so, of course, in 3 years or in the second year, you start going, look, guys, if we're going to do a trauma scene, let's schedule that at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Let's not, we're not. And so it got, and by the third year, things got, started mellowing out. But the first 2.5 years, it was brutal. It was brutal. But we had such energy. We were so young and wide-eyed. No one had. It was so funny because we were the last people to know how successful the show was, because we were working so hard that we were so insulated that we just worked, went home, went to sleep, got back up, came back on the weekends. You do your family thing, but we really for the first month and a half of ER, we were in this little thing. And then once you start going to these events, and things are just that's when you start going, whoa, this thing is huge. You know what I mean? But we were, and George had 8 series, none of them went, or various, did some stuff on Roseanne and stuff like, but he did, no real success. He was, but yet he was the veteran. Noah was, wet behind the ears, none of us were prepared. But we were such a strong unit that we, kept it together. And, we went to New York for the upfronts and to make the announcement that the show got picked up. And we're backstage, and they hook up a monitor backstage because they're showing it to all the affiliates and all of this. So they put together this clip. And it was amazing. It was amazing because we were there, and Juliana wasn't there because they were keeping Juliana's, because in the pilot, Juliana originally, she died.
Oh, right.
She died, but she tested so well,
She got better.
decided to revive her, But they wanted to keep it a secret.
Right.
So she wasn't at the upfront. So it was just the 5 of us, me, Sherry, George, Noah, and Anthony. And so we're back there and we're watching this thing. And it was just like this kid just realizing this dream. And so we just hugged each other and grabbed each other and we were just so excited. And then they called us out on stage, and we were at Alice Tully Hall in Lincoln Center, and at huge auditorium. And when we walked out on stage, the affiliates just stood up and went crazy.
Wow.
And we were like, we spent so much of our time deer in the headlight syndrome. We spent so much of our time because, like I said, we were exhausted, man. Sure. We were exhausted. Right after the pilot, it was one of the few times when, I had a little money, but more importantly, I knew I was going to be making a little money. So right after we got picked up, I was like, I called up Noah and I was like, yo, man, what are you doing for the summer? So, because we don't go to work until, so he says, nothing. He said, I'm just going to hang out and try to have fun. I said, how far are you willing to take that fun? And so he goes, why? What do you have up? And so I said, let's go to Europe. So he's like, cool. So he calls up George. He says, George, E and I are going to go to Europe. We're going to go to Spain. So George goes, it's a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. It's like, you can't win. You're going to go over there. You guys are going to fight. You're going to have a bad time. And then you're going to have to come back and work with each other. You can't win. I'm coming. So the three of us, Noah and I, go over to Spain, and I'm so anal retentive. I made all the arrangements, and I, got the hotel and blah blah blah. We get to our hotel, and there's one bed.
Oh yeah.
And it was a single. And so I'm like, I look at him, he looks at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll work out in the morning, but, so we ended up cuddling. I mean, we were like, it was like just one of the funniest stories, because literally we woke up and we're, hey. And so we had the best time. And so we were in Europe. George was just coming off of Sisters. No, George was still on Sisters, but they were going to have to, get rid of him. And remember, I still had that show under suspicion. Yeah. So George had to get killed off on Sisters. I had to get killed off on Under Suspicion. So George had this, George had a little following. I had done Coming to America. So at the time, I was the most recognizable one. So in Europe, people were like, oh, so close. So Noah and I, George is going to meet us over there the following day. So Noah and I had a day and a half of bonding. So I remember we go to this bar, and we're in there, and Noah's sitting up on this bench, and this guy comes up to me. He walks past me, and he goes, "Oh my God! Oh my God! It's you!" Now let me give you guys advice. As act, never assume. So I'm going, yeah. Oh my God, Billy, what is it? Billy Ocean. Noah, who has perched himself on a stool and drinking, I turn around, this fool has fallen on the floor, laughing hysterically. And George comes over, he meets us, and it was one of the most amazing times. And it's so funny because, you always tell people, be in the moment.
Right.
Because you never know what's around the corner.
Right.
We could never do that again.
Right.
We traveled, we had fun, we could do anything we wanted to. I mean, George, it's so funny because, every once in a while there'd be like some European woman. George's character on Sisters was named Falconer. And we went to this club one night, and this woman, Falconer, I want to have your baby. So we're like, that's cute. 4 hours later, no, I'm going to have your baby. I'm going to have your baby, right? George is like, okay, I'm out. It's kind of crazy. But you gotta be in the moment because you can never get that. I mean, little did we know that the next time we went to Europe in any form, whether it was, with girlfriends or whatever, it was a whole nother thing. And so it's just like that was like one of our last moments of like simplistic innocence.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Cool. How involved was Michael Crichton at the early stages of that? Or did he stay involved throughout it? I mean,
He and Spielberg, Crichton was a little more involved in the beginning. And again, something else to his credit, Michael Crichton wrote ER as a movie.
Right.
And he had written it, I think like 20 years prior.
Really?
And even 20 years ago, he saw Dr. Benton as a black man.
Huh.
And which is amazing because we're talking about 1974.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking 1973, 1974.
Yeah.
He wrote, that's who he saw Benton as. So I just had so much respect for him in that whole, process.
What an amazing man, too.
Yeah, he was just, turning out. So, so he was, and then at that point, it just became, back up the truck, load the money in. I mean, I remember I saw Spielberg on the set maybe 4 or 5 times. Crichton was on the set maybe about the same. 2 years later, they did this big deal. They got $96 million apiece.
Ooh.
I was like, I want to be a producer. Yeah. I mean, whoo, man. Yeah, but that was, it was cool. I mean, obviously, again, we were kids, so, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And I was just getting into filmmaking.
Yeah.
And Spielberg was very, very instrumental. Spielberg got me my first directing job. Yeah, I directed a short my first year of ER, the first hiatus, and it was a 37-minute short, and it was very well received. Mel Gibson had wanted to turn it into a feature, and he and I have the same publicist, and so we became friends. And Spielberg loves film. He loves filmmakers. He loves film. And he knew, what I was trying to do. And I remember when we were shooting the film, we called up Chapman Cranes. And we're like, listen, we ain't got no money, but we was wondering if you could loan us a crane. They were like, get out of here. Yeah. And so I was like, Uncle Steven, I want to make a movie. Yeah. I need a crane. Yeah. We got a phone call. We would love to just give you a crane and an operator, and we'll even buy you lunch. Yeah. And I was like,
isn't that amazing?
Wow. And so, did the film. It turned out nice, and so then there was a film called Rebound at HBO, which is a basketball film about Earl the Goat Manigault. And I read this script, and I was like, I was just shaking. I read it, and I was just that passion. I was like, I want to do this. This would be great. So I went in, and I met with the heads of HBO and all the producers, and I left. I left at 12 o'clock. My meeting was at 11. I left at 12. 12:15. Steven Spielberg called and said, you should really hire him. He's got a good eye. 12:30, Mel Gibson called. You should really hire him. And at 12:45, I think my agent, they were like, look, enough calls. He's hired. No more calls, okay? And so I'm really grateful to him. I just loved his energy, because it was like, if you wanna make film, I want people to make film. He just loves, and it's not something, he loves me. It's just like he loves film. He loves people that love film. And I'm, that was a really important thing for me, because that was the thing that got me going.
Directing and producing.
Yeah.
You've been fortunate all the way along to have mentors and people who believed in you and gave you opportunities. Do you try to find a way to do that in turn now to the people that are up and coming around you or that you see?
You know what? I think, I think the word mentor is so abused and overused. And I remember when Clay, someone told him, they were like, you're my mentor. And he was like, no, because a mentor represents an ideal of life, of art, I mean, it goes beyond, because we're artists, art in life, it just, you know what I mean? It's not like you might have a mentor in computers who teaches you how to, but we're talking philosophy, we're talking passion, we're talking, and when I saw him and how he dealt with that situation, I was never quick to say, you're my mentor, or he was never quick to say, but after being with this man for 8 years or so, we got to a point where it was like, that is what you are. And again, people have said that to me, oh, you're my mentor. And I'm not. What I think I've been blessed to have mentors and mentor-like people in my life because I've always exhibited a passion for whatever it was I was doing. And I think any person that's proud of their craft appreciates people wanting to do what they do. Yeah. And so again, Steven Spielberg, it wasn't like, oh my God, Eriq La Salle. It was like, hey man, you want to make movies, right on. You know what? And you're passionate. You're passionate about it. And I want to support that. Yeah. And that's, and so, people say, oh, you're my mentor, but it's like, but those people don't exhibit the discipline, the passion, the commitment to, there's only been one person in my life that I've met, a young person in my life that I met, that I said, I want to mentor you, because that person reminds me of me, and you don't find, they're rare. Sure. And I think if you come across that, then I think you nurture it, and I think it's your responsibility, because they will, and not that they have to absorb all of your ideals, but that you can teach them, they can learn, they can grow. You want to nurture them. You want them to be challenged. You can do that. And so, out of I teach acting. I've dealt with hundreds of actors in one capacity or another. There's only been one person who's not even an actor or an actress, but there's only been one person that I'm like, you got some stuff to you, and let's develop that. Yeah.
This is great. Let's go to some member questions if we can here, because we're fast running out of time. What happened? I got locked in there. Okay. Let's see here. Lorenzo Leonard asks, on a weekly basis, I send faxes to producers asking for a meeting, but I don't seem to get any interviews. What do you think would be the best way to get one?
Well, I mean, when you have your own company, I mean, the bottom line is actors are hungry, and everybody just wants to every artist wants the opportunity to express their art. Right. Unfortunately, we're reactionary as artists. We are the most reactionary. If someone writes a script, we react to it. We get an audition, we react to it. Our agent calls us, we react. I think with, as far as like meeting with producers or it's like, what do you have to offer? You have to come to the table bringing something. I like to be in business with people that are business minded, that have talent. I can't just, the problem is, I mean, we get, oh my God, Allison has to read so many scripts that are bad. And so it's like, what are you offering? I think when you have something very clear, like, people ask me, are you going to Cannes? Are you going to Sundance? If I don't go to any of those things, and I won't go unless I have a film there, because I don't schmooze. That's not me. And so for me to sit around and talk to you just to be talking to you, this is a great forum. And this is the opportunity to do that. But for me just to, go to Cannes and rub elbow, if I don't have anything to say, and so if you want to meet a producer, what do you have to offer? It's not, well, I'm a really good actor. Well, you know what? There are a lot of those around. So you got to find that thing that separates you and makes you attractive. That's the bottom line. And whether that is, I have a cool script, I have a cool concept, whatever. But if and after a while, it's your reputation. Because if you have a reputation of being someone with integrity and someone who works hard, those are the types of things that once people get to know your name, that they might, let me hear what this person has to say. But just to be going blindly, I'm sorry, I won't take those. I don't have time. And I'll go through these periods where I'll just go, okay, I'm going to try to meet with this person. I'm going to try, and I get overwhelmed. I take a couple of minutes. I'm like, I want to take a nap. I'm tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People drain you because everybody is so hungry and everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants their project done. So you got to bring something. You got to bring something to get something.
Very good. Susan Jordan asks, do you foresee the eventual replacement of real actors with computer-generated images? A lot of that going around.
There's a lot of that going around. No, I don't see it, because I think if you go back to classical theater, theater in Africa, theater in Greece, it's so primal. And at the end of the day, we go to the theater and we go to the movies to identify in one way or another with what we're seeing. To either say, I'm better than that person, or this person inspires me.
Right.
And that's human emotion.
Yeah.
And I love to see those projects tanking, because you can't replace this.
Right. Yeah. It's the human experience.
Exactly.
Anyway, for God's sakes. Yeah. Dina Becker asks, do you think it's more beneficial for actors of color to form their own production companies? And why do you think more prominent actors are not doing this?
I don't necessarily, yes and no. I think forming is a verb, which means you're being proactive. And I love proactive.
Yeah.
So if you decide, hey, listen, we're women, we're not getting the kind of attention we want or we need. Hey, girls, let's meet, let's talk about writing our own scripts. Let's start talking about directing our own thing. I love.
Right.
I didn't form my company as an African American company. I formed my company as an artist who happens to be African American. Because be careful not to pigeonhole yourself, because Hollywood will do that enough for you. Because it's like, yes, we get a ton of black projects. And I love, people go, you know what? You're a really good actor. You're a really good director. And you're like, well, thank you. So of course they send you all their black projects. If you think I'm a good director, just send me projects that you think are good.
Right.
And so we have a balance, because we get, but it does still amaze me that a lot of people, we think you're a really good director, and they want to pigeonhole you. So I didn't form my company. I want to be a black company. As a matter of fact, we're the UN. I mean, we've got Asian, Latino, Black, Jewish. We got everything at our company. You know what I mean? And so I don't limit myself and see myself as a black company. I see myself as a company that's trying to do things differently.
The name of your company. Yeah, absolutely. The name of your company is Humble Journey Productions, correct?
Right.
Where did that come from?
Because it's a journey, man. I know this thing called life, this thing called art, the pursuit of it. It's a journey, and I knew I wanted journey in when we were forming the company. My partners, I knew I wanted journey in it, and humble was a reminder that, like, even though I was on ER and from the outside, it looks, oh, well, he's got it made now. I mean, I was still dealing with, and still deal with, the same racism. I still deal with, this is a very sexist, racist, iconoclastic. It's a very interesting industry that we've chosen. And for me, it was just a matter of, it's a reminder. It's like, no matter how much you think you have going on, keep it in check. And so that's where Humble Journey came from.
Great. Well, this is a nice segue here. Cynthia Hardy asks, what obstacles did you deal with as an African-American actor, and have there been any changes? If not, what do you think we need to do about it?
Well, I mean, every actor in here, black, white, male, female, young, middle-aged, old, we all have challenges. We all have challenges because you're too short for this project, you're too light for this project, you're too skinny for this, whatever. So that's the nature of our industry. When you start getting into things specifically, African American men, African Americans are not paid what they should be paid. And it's amazing because you can be in this business for years and have this great body of work, right, and you come to find out that they're not paid. Women aren't paid what they're supposed to be paid. I have very individual challenges. I try not to get hung up on that too much, because it'll make you negative. I have my venting periods, but I just try to stay proactive. I try to do, well, you know what? You don't want to pay me what I'm worth as an actor. Let me go. I want to own, like this year, and since I left ER, I was like, I don't really want to go back and do series television unless I own the show. Yeah. So, I learned. I'm the type of person I absorb. And like I said, when I saw Michael Crichton and Spielberg not even having to really do anything on the show anymore, and you go, that's power. Yeah. And so, a lot of these shows suck, and you go, first of all, I could do a show as good as you. So I'm in a position now where I can have that kind of power. Why wouldn't I pursue it? Why do I want to be on your show, treated as an actor, just as an actor, while you're calling the shots? I don't even agree with the shots you're calling. And as a minority, you need empowerment. You really need. I started directing. I was doing a film years ago with Michelle Pfeiffer. It was an interracial love story called Love Field, and Denzel Washington was doing it with her. He dropped out, and so there was this big search to replace him, and they hired me, and it just snatched me up, and it was a whirlwind kind of thing. This was before ER, and they were like, who's the guy that replaced Denzel? Well, he's obviously going to be the next it. And I was like, my first time I had pictures of me and people. I was like, oh my God, and everyone said, this is going to make it. You're going to make it now. So I go to North Carolina, and we're shooting for 2 weeks, and I am doing the best work of my career at that point. I had a little apartment. All I would do was just study, and I felt good. I got fired. And they said, you're making Michelle look too old. And I'm like, well, can't y'all put some makeup on that baby?
Come on.
Beat that face. You talking about firing me?
Yeah.
And I'm, I could
Yeah.
understand it if, I could understand
man.
it if I was out partying or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I was working so hard and it was so big, and I got fired. And since getting kicked out of Juilliard, that was the second most devastating thing to happen, because you go, what do you do when you're doing your best?
Yeah.
And so they fired me. They had to pay me.
Yeah.
And I took my money. I went shopping. And I did my little indulgence thing for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I enrolled in film school. And
Yeah.
I just literally took a little short. I don't want to offend people that went to real film school. I literally just took a little 6-week course, intensive course. But I felt that coupled with my presence on set,
Sure.
and because I said at that point, and this is so funny, this is how pretentious youth is. I was like, I don't want to be 40 and having to go through that. Like I thought that was like the worst thing in the world to be 40 years old, and I'm like, I'm 40 now, and it's like, but I said to myself, I don't want to have a family, and I don't want to, do the best I can do, and someone have that kind of power over me.
Sure.
And so I started taking classes then, and it's been a 12-year journey. I started shooting short films. It's been a 12-year journey to get, because you don't just wake up overnight and go, oh, I'm tired of acting now.
Yeah.
And so all of you guys, when you get frustrated and you hate the industry and stuff like, you know what? Find some and start doing it now.
Yeah.
So that when opportunity presents itself, you are prepared, because that's what success is.
Absolutely.
Opportunity meeting preparation, or preparation meeting opportunity. And so I couldn't have had a Steven Spielberg in my pocket if I hadn't taken 5 or 6 years of really, and then after that, I was like, every time I was on set, I would ask a DP, hey, why are you doing that? I would just ask questions, and I would tail behind people. I would follow people. I'd sneak into the editing room if I had done a pilot or whatever I did. But it's about empowering yourself. So I know, the frustrations that we have as actors. Do something about it. Start writing. Start writing tonight. Start writing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Start doing, because maybe in 2 years, maybe it won't happen overnight, and most likely it won't.
Right.
But maybe in 2 years, after you start, you've been doing it for a while, you get an opportunity in 2 years, and all of a sudden you start going, hey, I don't need to take this job that I find degrading. I don't need to take this act. I don't need to take this bullshit deal. I don't need to. And that is power. Just us being able to say no. That's power. And we as actors, we give it away. We give it away constantly. Oh, tell me I'm a good actor. Tell me I didn't get that fucking audition. My agent. And I mean, I have some people, it's hard for me to be friends with them, because there's this one person I know, you call her up, she's like, my fucking agent. And you're like, do something.
Yeah.
Do
Right.
something.
Right.
Empower yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, excellent. Somebody once said that power corrupts, but absolute power is a really neat thing.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I agree.
Peggy Sue asks, how did you prepare for your role as the detective in 1 Hour Photo? I loved your interview scene between you and Robin Williams. Did you study the behavior of mental patients?
You know what? No, actually, we, Mark Romanek, the director, we just talked, and we decided that we didn't really want to do the stereotypical berating cop thing. You're going to tell me what I need to know. And so we took on because this guy had such a dysfunctional childhood, I took on the role. When I read it, I said, I think I would be more effective if I take on a father-like role, and if I can be nurturing, And I'm always looking to do things differently. You know, we see the cops, you know, and I'm going, okay, more power. What's more powerful than we've seen that.
Right.
And so I felt it would be interesting to do this interview with this man who's done some very heinous things. But it's not that I am condoning, I am empathizing. I am attempting to empathize. And so that's a challenge, you know, because I don't agree with what you did. But that's what being an artist is. We are not supposed to comment on human nature. We interpret it as artists, but we should not comment on it, because if you comment, and that's one thing I did with ER, Dennis Franz, ER came on a year after NYPD Blue, and I used to be hooked on NYPD Blue. And the reason I was hooked on it was because they were uncompromising. Dennis Franz played a drunk bigot, and he was unapologetic about it as an actor. And so when I decided to do Benton, I said, this will be a character that not everybody likes. But you know what? I'm not going to try to be Mr. Likeable. I'm going to try to serve the character. So sometimes you'll like him, sometimes you won't. Right. But actors were so caught up into image, because if you don't like my character, you don't like me.
Right.
You know, and you know, and unfortunately, yeah, you get pigeonholed, and sometimes, I mean, everyone thinks, oh my God, he's just like Peter Pan. Is he really that serious? Is he really, you know, if I'm dating someone, it's just like, is he really like, you know, like
We were talking about that tonight, you know, going with you.
you know, and it's like, it's called acting.
Right.
You know, so just not having to apologize for your work, and just letting it. European artists tend to do that more than American, because America is such a business.
Yeah.
It's like Tom Hanks can't play a pedophile.
Right.
He can't. That might be a great character. That's one thing I like about what Robin Williams is doing now, because he's exploring his darker side. But sometimes you become such a prisoner of your celebrity,
Right.
that you can't explore the power of being an artist.
Yeah.
Because you should be able to.
Sure.
You know, so with 1 Hour Photo, I just said, you know, I don't want to judge this guy. This character doesn't judge him. He just, you know, puts it out there. And I want it to be simple. I knew I was getting ready to leave ER. I wanted this was one of my first, this was the first project that I would be doing post ER. And I just wanted to slowly start showing people there's another side.
Colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Gwen asks, who has been your favorite director and why, if you have one?
I don't have a favorite director, but I love directors when you audition, they tell you something you didn't think about.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite directors. And that's the type of director that I try to be. When I audition people, I love it when I say something to them that they didn't think about. It just gives them and then to see how quickly they can, you know, adapt. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about directors that I've worked with, I mean, I like, I haven't worked with them, but I really like Christopher Nolan. I really like what he's doing. I'm much more influenced by European directors, Tornatore, who did Cinema Paradiso, Akira Kurosawa, who is, you know, by far one of my, just a master. Early Scorsese, earlier Scorsese, early Coppola. You know,
Yeah.
those are, yeah.
Yeah, great. Leslie Susan Berger says, crazy as hell, saw the movie, and it was so suspenseful, had me on the edge of my seat, and I loved it. Was it difficult being director and actor too?
Yeah, but I've been I've been for the last few years, when I do these short films, I would do like little roles in them. So you start weaning yourself, you start training yourself how to do it. Crazy as Hell was hard and challenging for a lot of reasons. It was completely our production. We didn't have studio backing, so we were really I was wearing all the hats, and we had very little money, but the most gratifying thing I've done. Because we did it on our terms. It wasn't a, commercial success or anything like that. But my partner, Butch Robinson, who lives in New York, and Mike Beach, we stayed at my house. So it was kind of like going back to college, because we'd work all day, then we'd come home and we'd debate. We'd rewrite, we'd argue, it was like, I don't even want to see you go, you know what I mean? And then, or just have like a love fest of like, man, we did some good shit today. We 15 hours, man, and you get home and you're like, so it was just one of those things, man. And again, it was, we tried to get studios to back us. They didn't, and we just did it. I saw a film by Darren Aronofsky, Requiem for a Dream. And I just thought, you know what? This guy just made his film. And when I saw that film, I said, I'm making Crazy as Hell. I don't care what people think about it. I think that there are some people that will get what we're going for. And so it was, gratifying.
It was good.
Yeah. Your publicist, right there. Did you ever find a moment in that experience, though, where you're about to be in a scene and something catches your eye, a prop out of place, or a this or a that, where you go, "Wait a second, wrong hat, got to stay in the moment here"?
My partner. We've been working together. My partner was my first DP, and the first short film that I ever did, he was the DP on. So theoretically, we've been working together for about 12 years. So he really knows, I trust him. He knows so I have a confidence. The thing about it is you do these takes and then you got to run back to the monitor.
Sure.
So what we would do is I would do 3 takes before I would go back to, because I didn't want to interrupt the flow. And so, there were challenges. How many people saw Crazy as Hell? Okay. Damn.
Not bad. A lot more. They're going to go out and rent the video.
But the funny and challenging thing was, my character is so outlandish, and there's one scene where I wear a leather dress, and when I showed up on set in this leather dress, being the leader. Yeah. It was just, and Mike just turned to me and he was like, "Right on, man, just go for it." It was just go for it. So I'm in this weird outfit, but I'm like, okay, over here, do this, and I got a pearl necklace on, and it's just, so it was,
Yeah. And you look fabulous. So. Jennifer Weston asks, do you find producing creatively fulfilling?
Yeah, it's control. It's control. And I think when you can control a project to, not all projects as a producer, you produce projects for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Some are money gigs, and some are creative gigs. The creative ones that we've produced, I love, because I have darker sensibilities. I have grittier sensibilities. So being able to say, hey, no, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's not shy away from it. Where a lot of producers would be like, oh no, we can't do it that way. I'm like, hey, let's go for it. So yeah.
Great, cool. Joy Magado, it looks like. How did you go about creating projects for yourself? Is there a process that you approach it? Do you write first? Do you look for the project to produce? Or?
I do a lot of crack.
There's a process.
Yeah. No. We just constantly look for interesting projects, and if I have an idea, we've got a really really cool company because I don't care if you're an intern or an exec, everybody has an opinion that's respected. So we go into our little conference room, and if we start talking about an idea, everybody's equal. Everybody has, and so a lot of companies don't know how to, everybody's so hooked up and tied up into titles and you can't do, no, I'm like, look, hey, if somebody's got a good idea, let's go. And so we go, hey, this would be cool, no. And then sometimes you come in, you have a cool idea, but you don't have it fleshed out. And somebody, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Months ago, I was like, I want to do a cop show. I really want to. And I said maybe two things, and Allison actually came back with this great show, this great concept. And then we jumped on it and we took it and we fleshed it out even more, and that's one of our pet projects now. You know, so you find it. We just want to create. We just want to do shows. We just we just want to do movies. We just want to create. So there's no particular process. It's just the process is this. The process is when does inspiration hit you. The process is tonight thinking whenever as long as you're watching a movie going, oh, we could. It's always, that's the thing about being an artist. I mean, whenever we're in the moment, there are two of us, because there's always us in the moment and us kind of outside the moment as an artist, absorbing and going, ooh, this is dramatic, or this was this, or this was that. So that's that. And when you're a director and a producer, there are four of you, because you're like, but it's always going on.
Why do you think that from my experience and what I've seen out there are very few companies that approach things in that way, that there's so much ego in the way, and yet you get so much more done if you're willing to collaborate and realize
I don't have that type of hubris, It's like, I definitely have a healthy ego.
Come on.
But, I've just never been, I'm not hung up, because I'm not in this business for money. I'm not in this business to, a lot of times I meet people that, they were a little chubby kid that never got picked, or they had a really horrible, I had a nice childhood, I had a fun childhood. I'm in this industry because I'm an artist and I want to create, and I love storytelling. I love that. I love that. And so I'm here to do what I love. And so it's not just my story. It's, you might have an interesting story that I go, wow, that's pretty cool. How can we tell that story? Right. And so I was just raised, give people credit. Yeah. But by being an independent filmmaker, you learn you don't have the money to pay people a lot of times. Right. So you learn to reward people in other ways. Yeah. You reward them with admiration, with respect, with equality, with opportunity. Yeah. It creates these muscles in you and say, listen, I would love to pay you this, but I can't. But if you come and you work with us, you can get this out of it. And people go, and sometimes they're like, oh, okay, fine, and so that, and it's genuine, because that's what I believe, that's how I believe it should be. Right. Yeah.
It's great. That's very cool. Barbara asks, do you think you would be a successful producer had you not been on ER? Did ER inform your ability as a producer?
No. I mean, everything influences it, but I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, but obviously ER afforded me a certain status or financial security or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a domino effect, because by doing a season on ER, I was able to spend some money on a short film that got me out there as a director, that then ended up getting me a movie on HBO, which you know what I mean. So, but none of that would have happened had I not gone to class and you know what I mean, or made a decision. So eventually, if it wasn't through ER, I would have eventually I think you end up where you're supposed to be somehow,
Right.
by hook or crook. And I think I think that I'm supposed to direct and produce and create.
Yeah.
And I think I would have found that somehow.
Yeah. Tori asks, when auditioning, which is the stronger choice, entering in character or your authentic self?
Well, people do things differently. There's no magical way. I mean, I have gone in concentrated, and I've gone in and not necessarily wanted to do the chitter chatter thing and say, let me do my thing. But sometimes it's very pretentious to because an audition is not just about your interpretation of the character. It's, do these people want to work with you? What's their sense of your personality? So you're selling two things. And so if you're narrow-minded and you just think that, it's just, sometimes if you're not careful, you come off weird when you and it's weird. You've got to make sure. I just say, go in, be prepared for anything, because sometimes people will come in, they want to sit down and talk to you, and if you're and they're like, listen, if Steven Spielberg, you should hope that a director says, sit down, talk to me, blah blah blah, and because that might be their way of just saying, because what I always say when I teach is like, I don't want to see acting.
Right.
I just don't want to see that. Come on. So sometimes people come in and it comes off as very pretentious. It's like, don't talk to me. I'm in character.
Yeah.
And it's just acting, people. Just acting.
Do you find yourself when you're sitting on the other side of the table and auditioning actors, sweating for them or, feeling bad for them? And
yes and
what
no.
do you do to
yes
help?
Yes and no. It
help them through
depends
the
on.
process?
One thing I made a vow. Has anyone here ever auditioned for me?
Okay, you're safe.
I make a commitment to treat actors with dignity, because we are treated with such disregard at times, and people on the phone while people could care less. And my thing is, this person took some time to prepare, and I don't care how bad they are. I don't care how. And of course, you're human, and sometimes you're like, damn, that was pretty bad. But when they're in the room, dignity. And I cannot tell you, I have actors that come up to me and they say, man, I auditioned for you, and man, it was just such a good audition. Oh. And when an actor can say that after not having gotten the job, it's like, because it's like if I audition and you take the time and you just treat me with dignity, that's what we just want, dignity. If you treat me with dignity, it's like, right on, thank you you for really giving me those 3 minutes, and that's that's why you're supposed to be, and I've heard of directors literally on the phone. I've heard of people just, whatever, and so. I try to be on time. And if I'm not, I apologize. But the main thing is, it is a personal goal of mine for actors to leave with more dignity than what they entered with. Yeah.
Great. Very cool. Ramel asks, what do you do to keep your acting skills sharp?
Good one. I teach. When I can. I actually just ended a session.
Where do you teach?
There's an acting teacher by the name of Ivana Chubbuck, she actually one summer gave me my own class, but a lot of times I used to fill in for her, and I'm actually I think I'm filling in for her next week. But there was another gentleman, Eugene Williams. His nickname was Doughboy. And he has a coffee shop over in the Lamert Park area. And he's no longer with us. And so when he passed about 4 months ago, 7 months, has it been that long? December. Oh, December. He passed in December. I so admired what he was doing because this guy turned his coffee shop into an acting. And when I say a coffee shop, I mean, like, people can be up there acting their ass off. Somebody will come in the middle. Can I get a double latte? You know. And at first I was like, oh my God. But then I thought, wow, that's dedication. And he did it. He charged people $5 a class. And so when I went to his memorial service, and I heard that, of course, they didn't know what they were going to do. So I said, you know what? I will come and teach so you guys because you should continue this.
Yeah.
This guy this was community. This is in the heart of Leimert Park. It was just, you know what I mean? It's like, guys, they can't, you know, a lot of, you know, people there, they don't come on this side or whatever, but they still have the same passion that we have. And so I said, so I did that for a couple of months, and I just ended a couple of weeks ago. And now I'll fill in for Ivana periodically because you have to. I love actors. I love acting. I love seeing it. I love breaking it down. I get jealous sometimes when they're up there and you just want to jump up there, you know. You know, and I still work. I still work as an actor. So periodically. So
Do you ever just pull out a monologue, dust it off, and play around with it just for the hell of it, or not really?
Yeah, that's when people. It's usually like when I'm driving down. You know. I mean, I just love it. I love the process. I love seeing actors work, especially actors that, even if they're not great, they just have a great imagination and they have courage.
Yeah.
I love courageous actors. I love people that's not afraid to fall on their face. That I can work with. You know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I love this question, and you have to wait till the end to answer this, okay?
Okay.
Peggy Sue Lazar asks, how come you're not on tonight's episode of ER, the 200th anniversary? You really should be on it. And if you are on it, forgive me, because I didn't read my TV guide.
Wow. Well, basically, I mean, I left the show. A year and a half, 2 years now. So I just, you know, it was time to move on.
I think Peggy Sue just thought they should have reprised the role somehow.
You know, sorry.
All right. Danielle Shields asks, how important is it for actors to start in theater to prepare for film and television?
It's a really good question. Again, there's no formula. What works for one person might not work for another. Somebody can wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be an actor and have a bigger career than anybody in here. Again, like I said, I'm a huge advocate of technique and training, and theater it's just the best training. I'm biased because I'm theater trained, but theater is the best training. And once you have that foundation, I mean, just being able to be spontaneous and be rich and real and in the moment. And I haven't, unfortunately, done a play in like 10 years. But, you know, that's still my foundation. So I, being biased, would say I think theater is, but they're two different. They're two different techniques. A lot of times you have to learn how to tone things down for film sometimes. But still, I love theater. Yeah.
If you were forced to make the choice, you could only have one or the other?
Well, I love film because film is around. It's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's vanity or whatever, but. You know those moments that you have on stage that are brilliant, and then it's followed by a sadness that moment is gone. And you're like, damn, I wish you had seen me, you know. Damn. Oh man, it was just so, I remember the last play I did was 2 Trains Running. I replaced Fishburne in Chicago, so I was with Roscoe and and we were in Chicago at the Goodman Theater, and that's about as good as it gets, you know. So I'm doing my thing. I'm just having a great time every night, and Roscoe is beautiful. Well, one night I'm backstage because I'm Juilliard trained, so I'm doing my breathing and stretching and preparing. And there's a buzz backstage. Something's wrong. Something's different, I should say. And so I open up my eyes and I see these security people coming down. And this was like maybe 92, 93. And all of a sudden, this tall figure in a suit. It was Michael Jordan.
Oh.
And they were sneaking him in backstage. And this was Michael Jordan at the height of Michael Jordanness.
Yeah.
I mean, this was, right? Yeah. I bitched up so much. I mean, I became this little schoolgirl. Right?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
And this is why. And this is why. Because I wanted to do for him what he had done for me so often in his thing. And I'm like, oh, Michael Jordan's here. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's here. Michael Jordan's here. Right? So I'm, okay. I go out on stage. And my character, for those of you that have seen 2 Trains Running, I mean, you know that character he's just hyper and he's just, well, I amped it up 50 times more. Roscoe Lee Brown is looking at me like, how much cocaine? Just how much? And where did you get it from? I was acting my ass off. I had to every once in a while just grab my ass and put it back on. It was just one of those things, one of those rare moments where you say, I mean, because how many times have we, did we used to watch TV and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I was like, the opportunity to, and so I was like, and afterwards, and it was, fortunately, it was one of my best performances.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting, I was like, okay, so they're gonna walk him back out. I'm backstage. I done done my thing.
Yeah.
They slipped him out like the side door. I was crushed. But then we became friends like years later, and the first thing he came in, he was like, man, I remember you did this play too. And then when I met his wife, she was like, baby, and I was like, oh, you remember? I was like, woo, baby. So, you have those moments,
That's great. Go ahead. I just want to say before we close up here that we actually met briefly about a year and a few days ago when you stood in this room on the day that we launched Global Rule 1, and you came down to the union and you stood up for your union. And I just want everybody to be aware that it's folks like Eriq and his colleagues that are willing to stand up for the little guys as well, and the people who are going to go on to do some great work to give us the kinds of protections that we have here at the union. We thank you for coming down tonight. Wish you just more.